Good evening. The Otago is mobilising to save its post office. More than 300 people attended a lunchtime meeting in Ranfurly today and vowed to start the fight with a mass letter-writing campaign to Parliament. Palmerston's starting a similar campaign as the dissatisfaction over post office closures grows. Michael Lynch reports.
Tim Armstrong will become a familiar figure to main road motorists. He's vowed to keep up a vigil outside the Palmerston post office until NZ Post changes its decimation policy in country towns. Local county councillors were there today to see him set up. And up the road in Ranfurly, the whole town turned out with a similar sense of purpose.
Whilst the corporation make millions of dollars, they continue to bleed rural districts dry in their pursuit of more and more and more profit at the expense of country people.
Jack Rutherford's putting a view that has few dissenters. But in Ranfurly and Palmerston too, they're confident they can wear the authorities down.
That is why we are saying, ladies and gentlemen, enough is enough, and calling on our rural communities throughout New Zealand to do the same.
Ranfurly invited Stan Roger and Postbank officials to today's meeting. Only Warren Cooper came, and he didn't have much in the way of optimism. Can you pledge to reopen these post offices?
Once they close, once a retailer, in order to stay in business, prostitutes himself or herself to get the post office agency, I think it's lost to a community.
In Palmerston, they're trying to mobilise businesses to spurn the offer of a postal agency. A petition has hundreds of signatures, and the protester has vowed to keep it up.
If it takes 4 days or 4 weeks, I hope to stay here until hopefully we can get them to change their mind.
And in Ranfurly, where 100 jobs have gone in 10 years through corporation cuts, it's desperation time.
The time has come, ladies and gentlemen, to get off the ropes, to swing a punch or two of our own, to show our politicians that we have had enough.
Ranfurly and Palmerston are among the latest in a long list of what most of us still call post offices to close in Otago and Southland. 2 years ago, there were 127 in the region. Within the next month or two, there'll be just 23. John McDermott details the other recent additions to the list.
The closure of Lumsden's post office at Queen's Birthday weekend will cost 3 jobs, but the town will be left with 2 other banks. Arrangements regarding a postal agency are due tomorrow, although the locals hope a big petition will overturn the closure decision. Wyndham also closes at Queen's Birthday weekend with 2 jobs going. There will still be 2 banks and a yet-to-be finalised postal agency. The late May closure in Otago will cost 4 jobs, but the community will be left with 2 banks and a shop-based postal agency. In Riverton, the locals are hoping a 600-strong petition to the Prime Minister will stave off their early June closure, with its resulting 5 jobs lost. If that fails, there'll still be 2 banks in the town and a postal agency. It's the same in Matara, where the local borough council's leading the battle to overturn a late May closure that would cost 6 jobs. The campaign against will be fought largely through the mail. Milton's mayor is fighting a mid-May closure that would leave 3 banks in the town, but the nearest post bank at Balclutha. Again, there'll be a New Zealand Post agency, but the change will cost 5 jobs. 5 jobs will also go in Roxburgh midway through June. The postal agency arrangements are currently being worked out, but the town will still have 2 banks. And finally to Waikawaiti. 4 people will lose a job there, but the town will still have a postal agency, and it's 1 full-time and 1 part-time banks.
That all adds up to a lot of unhappy communities, concerned by what they see as another downgrading of their rural towns. But the state-owned enterprises involved, New Zealand Post and Postbank, see it another way. They point to a need for commercial logic in an age when both banking and postal services have changed. Here's Kathy Graham.
New Zealand Post's regional manager Bob McGregor insists that in spite of the closures, postal services are not being lost to the community.
People will still be able to post their letters, post their parcels, receive their letters and postal articles at the gate. There is no change. All we're changing is the building from which we provide the service today.
So why are people getting so upset about it?
Well, I'm not sure. I believe they see the building as the post office. We don't need bricks and mortar to provide a service.
It's 2 years since the post office became 3 state-owned organisations. New Zealand Post got stuck with buildings they say they can no longer afford. When they cut their costs and move their businesses to local agencies, in most cases Postbank pulls out altogether. With the regional manager out of town today, it proved impossible to get anyone else from Postbank to comment on camera. But a spokesman in Auckland did explain that the way banking's done nowadays has changed. Postbank now provide chequebooks and plastic cards, and we just have to change with the times. On the plus side, as New Zealand Post points out, there are now 147 postal outlets like this in the south, 20 more than before the big changes. Perhaps what's been most confusing for the consumer is the changeover itself.
The local residents don't really understand what state-owned enterprises are all about. I don't think they understand that there are 3 corporations, Telecom, Postbank and New Zealand Post. I think they believe the post office is a post office. I'm sorry, but that changed on the 1st of April 1987.
So that's really what it's about?
I think that's really what it's about.
The wharf at Dunedin was the place to be at the weekend. Good weather and open days on 2 big ships in port had anglers and visitors jostling for space. Doulos, billed as the world's biggest floating book fair, and the refurbished Inter-Islander drew sightseers by the thousand. Kathy Grave was among them.
Lately, the salmon fishermen have found themselves outnumbered. First of all by a clutch of anglers with much smaller fish to fry. They've been reeling in sprats by the dozen. Then there were the locals looking on enviously. And the crowds who came down to look over the 2 big ships. Doulos has been open to the public for a few weeks. On Saturday it was the ferry that most people had come to see. A crowd of thousands turned out to inspect the refitted Arahanga. The open day was organised by the Lions, and the $4,000 they raised will go to a camp for children with cancer. But by mid-afternoon they had to put up the barricades.
The boat's got far too many people on board, and they're not wanting to sail at 4 o'clock, so we can't accept any more people on board at this stage. Thank you.
Inside, the early birds patiently queued for a glimpse at the new fittings and furniture. Arahanga's been about 40 days in port, with an average crew of 80 working on her every day, and there's plenty to show for it. Sims Engineering should know later this week if they've won the contract to refit another Inter-Islander.
We're in with a chance. There are another 6 companies, 2 of them overseas, and we'd like to think we've as good a chance as anyone.
And if they do get it, it'll not only mean more work for the city, but another chance for those who were disappointed on Saturday.
We'll just have to keep our fingers crossed. And that's the programme for tonight. We'll be back tomorrow. Good night.